like to invite anyone from the public who may have some thoughts to share with us to come forth at this time. Seeing nobody, we will move on. We do not have any minutes from last week's meeting at this point, so we will hold off on that. On correspondence, statements, and announcements, I have one. The Association of Town Finance Committee announced some regional meetings that are coming up that I wanted to make sure the Finance Committee members knew about. There's one on April 9th in Middleton from 6 to 8 p.m. and another one on April 16th in Hadley from 5 to 7 p.m. Registration's required. There's no charge for these meetings. The Middleton meeting on April 9th will be a presentation on the basics of credit and bond ratings and the impact they have on municipality finances. And then the meeting on April 16th in Hadley is will be a budgeting 101 presentation. So if anyone would like registration links or more information, let me know and I'll forward that to you. Does anyone else have anything to add? Go ahead, Crystal.
So a little update on the DPW fire substation project. So we have one more meeting with Weston and Sampson on Wednesday the 18th. And as long as everything checks out and we feel comfortable with it, they're going to present the whole project to the select board on their meeting on the 2nd. So what we wanted to do is, I know that there were some questions, last week and a few different, comments. So we'd like the finance committee to, be here, pretty much in the audience for informational purposes, so you can hear what we're presenting to the select board. So I think that would be, we wanted to get out there ahead of time. So the tentative, plan is the 2nd.
Nancy.
I saw an email this afternoon that the school committee is going to get the facilities condition assessment report read out to them tomorrow night. So they're inviting us either to attend or we can watch on TV. Sounds like good information.
Very good. Anyone else? Seeing none, Bud, can you lead us off with the budget updates you have for us on how things are progressing with the overall budget, including perhaps the discussion about the Board of Selectmen's actions at last week's meeting?
Yeah, so a couple of quick updates first. A mistake I made last week, like when we were having the back and forth discussion about various things, including OPEB. I think I said that I had thought that the average budget or average tax increase from what's been proposed to the current year that we're in was about $25. It's about $250. So like we won't be able to nail that down until we get a budget finalized, but it was a mistake on my part, so I wanted to be upfront about that. The other thing I wanted to update on, if you look on top of your packets, last week we spent a lot of time in the beginning going through those budget changes that we highlighted from February. And then last week we got one additional item, so I just wanted to go through that. If you look at the bottom of that first page where it says March 2nd and 3rd, we got notified by Upper Cape that our estimated assessment has been increased by roughly $16,650. And so, and the other thing that happened over the ensuing week is more bills came in from the storm that we had. So we know we're further in deficit with the snow and ice account than we thought previously. And so Bill and I are recommending that we increase that deficit by $100,000, but decrease what we're putting in stabilization by $100,000. So the net is no change to the bottom line. If you look on the third page of the handout where the colored one-page summary that we're so used to seeing, nothing changed on the left-hand side. We're still recommending that higher excess levy reserve of $3.75 million. The first green box on the right-hand side, snow and ice deficit, you can see it's been bumped from $200,000 to $300,000, and then about halfway down, in terms of a stabilization fund transfer, we recommended that drop from 300 to 200, so by the same 100 that we bumped snow and ice. And then the new Upper Cape Tech number that we were given is second from the bottom. And again, it's just under 17,000 different than what we had before. Any questions on that? And then after I went through this in detail with the select board last Thursday, the town charter recommends that the select board vote an overall budget to recommend back to the finance committee by March 1st. As you guys know, we had to cancel the board's meeting at the end of February, so the board did vote last week to recommend the budget that you see on the last page, what I just went over, with the caveat that if we get, new information or better information, we would have to make adjustments. But overall, that's what they're supporting. And that was it.
Any questions for Bud? Bud, just one that came up a couple of times with some folks I talked to this week was when we saw the reductions with health and insurance, the question really became how do we figure out where to place that money, and how do you prioritize what? Maybe just take
Sure.
more for the public, I think, in terms of how you prioritize and make those decisions.
I would say under the town charter, it's ultimately my decision, but obviously I talk to a lot of people before I recommend things. And just, I thought it made sense with that much savings to try to increase the excess levy reserve. I think prior to that, it was roughly 3.2 million, I think. I'd have to go back and look exactly when we did the presentation at the end of January. So the bulk of it we put back towards the reserve, meaning we wouldn't be taxing people for that. And I think the other two items that we felt were really important to address were to put a little bit more money, especially in the OPEB trust fund, a little bit in stabilization, and then also with the storm that we had, where we had 100,000 previously, we knew we were short. Just so the committee's aware, and if this is confusing, let me know. Snow and ice is the one account that the state allows you to deficit spend. So we could do nothing about the deficit, and then when we went to certify our tax rate at the end of the year, they would actually take that from any excess levy reserve. So they would pay for it that way. I think we've always had the principle that we'd prefer not to carry over a deficit. So it's been 10 years, but I think Paul said it was 10 years ago when we had to do a finance committee reserve fund. I think Bill and I feel it's better to identify it separately. There's still several months to go in the fiscal year. We don't want to just say we're going to take it from the reserve fund, knowing that there may be other accounts that could go over. As you guys know, most of the time when any town budget, other than the fire overtime, goes over, it's pretty small. We do know one budget that's definitely going to go over is our veterans costs. That's totally dependent on who lives in your town, what services they go to. And that one, we get 75% reimbursement the following year, but that's one we know is going to be over. Far less than 100,000, just don't want to overstate it. So I think if you look where we put the money, and then we had also gotten an notice from Upper Cape Tech that their assessment had gone up. Before the 16,000, they had gone up again about 50,000 a couple weeks prior. So, and that's based on the governor's budget, which is what their enabling legislation says. So if you look at actual services, it's really been spent on either reserves, addressing a deficit, or put in the excess levy reserve.
Thanks for taking time to do that. Matt?
But just follow up on the snow and ice deficit. So that 300 is really being, in next fiscal year's budget, is really being used to pay back the deficit from this year.
Yeah, so what we would plan to do, the way we've identified it here, if it stays that way, is we would have an article at the annual town meeting to appropriate a certain amount of money to cover that deficit. It's under 300,000 right now, but bills are still coming in, so most likely we would probably transfer it from free cash, but Bill and I haven't talked about, and Caroline, where to take the money from, but that's probably where it would come from.
Jeff? Green light.
Here we go. If I heard you correctly earlier, you said that you had reported that based on this budget, the average increase on the taxes would be around $250?
Roughly, and we'll get a better number as we get closer to the end. Yep.
Prior to these changes, the budget was going up around 3%. Is that correct? From last year? Trying to remember.
I think the operating budgets came in under 3, but other costs are more than that. Some of them gets funded through other things than raise and appropriate in taxes. So I wouldn't want to say exactly what it was until I could look at something.
The reason I was heading there is that an increase, what that's saying is that the budget is going up faster than the value of property in the town. Because if the budget was going up at the same rate as the value of property, then it would remain unchanged.
One has nothing to do with the other.
Oh, I know that. I'm just asking questions. I understand one has nothing to do with that except they are related based on economy and so forth. So, costs are going up and the budget is going up. Costs to owners are going up both on taxes and on the cost of maintaining their property as well as other costs. Fuel is rising right now and so forth. So I was just curious
But our new growth.
how it was going up. It does take into account and I can't remember the numbers, but we went over the numbers at a different meeting a while back relative to how much the value of property, and I don't know if, Bill, you remember how much the value of property went up on average, percentage-wise?
I don't have that number in front of me at the moment. I can take a look for it, but I don't have it in front of me at the moment.
Yeah, I remember we talked about it because I was at a meeting that you were going over it. But what it says is that taxes are rising faster than property value. That's just a point I'm making.
I don't believe that's 100% accurate, but I'd have to have numbers in front of me to check. There have been several years recently when the average values have gone up 8 to 10%, when taxes were going up 2.5% plus new growth. So I can't say for sure what you're saying, what you stated.
I know, except that the budget is divided by the value,
No,
property value. That's how we come up with a percent. So something has, if that ratio is changing, I don't know where my math is wrong, but
the tax levy has nothing to do with the property values. Totally separate things.
the percent?
No, they're totally separate things.
What am I missing?
The
Don't we come up with a budget and then divide it by,
No, that's how you determine the tax rate. That has nothing to
Oh,
do
that's what I
with
meant,
what
tax rate.
values have gone up.
I understand, tax rate. I'm talking tax rate, not tax levy. I'm just saying the tax rate's going up. If it was going up at the same rate as the budget,
Our tax
there would
rate
be no tax impact.
tax rate went down last year.
I understand rate went down, but we don't pay rate, we pay dollars. So, just trying to compare the two.
Right.
Because I know the public does, and it looks at it as we go forward.
All set, bud? Yep. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. We're joined this evening by three important town departments and three of our great leaders, Fire Chief John Burke, Police Chief Jason Keene, and TPW Director Paul Tilton. Thanks for joining us tonight. They'll be presenting us with their insights into each of their budgets, and we're going to start with Fire Chief Burke. There's a mic. Yep, there you go.
Okay, good evening.
Just opened the fire slide and it came up as police.
Don't do that, bud.
Look.
You want Chief Keene to go first? That's fine.
Yeah. Lord knows where the other thing is.
Chief, it's all you.
All right. Chief Keene.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Can we go to the next slide? Or?
Yes. Sorry.
So to start with, I just want to do a quick overview of the department, starting with our current staffing. Right now, we have 39 full-time police officers, 2 currently in the police academy that graduate later this month. We have 0 vacancies, which Just on a side note, this is the first time we've had 0 vacancies on police and dispatch, I think probably since dispatch was created over 10 years ago. So we're in a really good place right now with that, with our staffing. We have 1 anticipated retirement later on this year. We have 2 sergeants that are out on long-term injuries. And we have 1 officer who was out on a 1-year-long military deployment. We have 9 full-time emergency telecommunicators, 1 full-time communications supervisor, 7 part-time police officers, 1 part-time emergency telecommunicator, 1 full-time clerical, 1 part-time clerical, and 1 social worker shared with other town departments. As far as our budget increase requests, we will be, our personnel costs will be going up from $5,739,200 to $5,883,768 to cover contractual wage increases. We will be maintaining the same operating budget as last year at $498,000. There's no increases in that. We do have 2 capital requests. One is to cover our year 3 cost of our 5-year TASER lease. That's at $30,000 is what that costs per year. And then the other request is for a Polaris Ranger Crew emergency vehicle, which is like a side-by-side 4-door emergency response vehicle. Primarily, that would be something that we'd be looking for to help cover like special events such as Sandwich Fest, 4th of July, parades, and so on and so forth. It gives us a little bit more flexibility than the 2 ATVs we have right now, which are single operator and only 1 passenger. This would be able to carry multiple officers or civilians or victims in the case of an accident or something like that over rough and uneven terrain. And it is covered and heated so it can be used all seasons and keep everybody out of the weather. The cost on that is approximately $30,000, and that includes everything it takes to outfit it. Okay, as I mentioned before, we're in the 3rd year of our 5-year TASER lease program. The first 2 years were paid for through $61,100 in capital expenses in FY25. And this year, like I said, covers the year 3 cost of $29,998. This lease program includes all of the TASER handles themselves, replacement cartridges, replacement batteries. If the TASERs are damaged or become inoperative in any way, they are replaced with no extra cost. And it also includes all training equipment that comes along with it for yearly certifications. Again, the Polaris Ranger Crew, estimated cost of $30,000. That's the GSA Advantage price, including transport. 10 years of anticipated service life, possibly more. Currently, we do not have a comparable vehicle. Again, it carries 4 people, 500-pound bed capacity, 1,500-pound tow capacity, and the cab is fully enclosed. And that's all I have for our capital requests. I did want to cover just real quick. If you go to, the last page, it shows some of our department statistics from this year compared to last year in a couple of key different areas. And what I wanted to touch upon was the addition of several positions we had last year, which was the addition of our mental health clinician, an extra SRO, and a extra patrol officer added to the evening shift. And this has had an immediate impact in the first year, as far as you can see the percent changes in the decreases in certain areas here, which are attributed to those staffing increases. Just real quickly, just in crisis interventions, which is a mental health episodes that we handle, we've seen a 19.6% decrease over last year. Domestic disturbance calls have gone down 18.9%. Identity theft calls have gone down 36.2%. Motor vehicle crashes are down 20.8%. Breaking and entering calls are down 35.7%, and overdoses are down 30%. And again, this is all attributed to having an extra car out on the road in the evening, basically as performing motor vehicle stops. Our OUI patrol arrests are also up this year from the increased staffing, getting dangerous people off the road. And preventing the breaking and enterings by having that extra cars available to be out there patrolling neighborhoods and so on and so forth. The mental health clinician is, we attribute the reduction in the domestic disturbances for repeat calls to homes due to the services that they provide. And the overdoses and the crisis interventions as well are attributed all to the mental health clinician. And the SRO has provided a valuable impact on the schools, having another person available to intervene early with kids in the school. Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions for Chief? Go ahead, Nancy.
Back on the TASER, so we're in we're looking at year 3.
Mm-hmm.
What are the costs going to be for 4 and 5?
The same. It's the same cost. Yeah, the 2,998.
30,000 as opposed to the 61?
Correct. Yeah, the 61 were paid for 2 years,
Okay.
the first 2 years, and then it's 30,000 each year after.
And do you anticipate that going up substantially? We have to renew, or too early to tell?
It probably will, to be completely honest. I've been doing this for a while. This is our second leasing program that we've been involved in with TASER, and each time it does go up. It's the cost of doing business.
Bob? Nancy, did you have a follow-up?
No, I'm not.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
Chief, thanks. Great presentation. My habit is always asking questions, so I'm going to ask a couple. And Polaris,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned having 2 ATV vehicles that seat 2. It's 4.
They each seat just one rider on each one.
One rider.
Yes.
Okay. And the fire department has an ATV, so that gives the town 3.
Yes.
And now we're proposing to acquire a 4-seat vehicle, right? So that's 7 seats, in my math. Can you remind me, at any particular time, how many officers are on patrol? Are there 7 people on patrol at any particular?
It wouldn't be primarily for a patrol like on a regular duty shift.
Right.
It would be during special events.
Understood.
Yeah, I mean, we have some special events, we can have up to 15 officers working detail posts. 4th of July is one that comes to mind. Just Sandwich Fest alone, we typically have 4 to 5 officers there.
So among the items that you and your team had identified for potential capital expenditures this year, this was the top of the list?
It was, because as, we're in pretty good shape with everything else, honestly.
Okay. good to know.
Most of our equipment is relatively new. We're in a new building, as you know. We really don't have a lot of other needs at this time.
Okay, thank you.
To that question, looking out at the capital for next year and the year after, it's similar kind of money. It's 55 next year and 5 in 29.
Yeah.
What are you anticipating? I know the TASER is part of it, but are there vehicles in the next 2 years as well?
No, there wouldn't be any more vehicles in the next couple of years. All the other vehicle purchases would be through our regular budget. We don't anticipate renewing any vehicles through capital in the immediate future. So the only thing I see on the radar right now is the TASERs as a necessary. There's always a potential that something could come up, but that's all I foresee at this time.
And my other question is on school resource officers. Are they in head count of
For the staffing?
39?
Yes. Yeah, they're included in that as well.
Jeff?
I can do this without standing. I had a question. I wanted to go back to the Polaris, but before I do that, I just wanted to thank yourself and your officers for the terrific job you do. And I think this, most recently in the issues we had with this storm, really shows the strength of your department, DPW and fire. So, I just wanted to take that opportunity to say that we had a issue, I think about a year ago, a break-in in our neighborhood, and thoroughness of the work that your team did was excellent. And
Thank you. Appreciate
you
that.
resolved it. It was really appreciated. With respect to Polaris, my question is around. You stated you don't have a comparable vehicle. You envision a mission for this vehicle. And my question is, how did you determine that this is the right vehicle for that mission, given that you don't have any history with a vehicle like this? So, why is this the right size? Could it be smaller? Could it be bigger? The last thing we'd want to do is buy a vehicle that doesn't serve the mission that we're trying to serve. So how did you come to the determination that this is the right vehicle for this mission? Thanks.
Yeah, we did sit down and discuss, what the vehicle would be used for. The ability to carry 4 passengers, I think, was ideal. Just as an example, we had a Sandwich Fest a few years ago where we had a couple officers working, and a person had a medical event in the center of the Sandwich Fest, and a vehicle like this would be, something that we identified would have been great to have been able to get that person out of there to the outside of the event itself, for transport by ambulance. So we did think about the what size vehicle. As far as the type, this is really, honestly, it's on the bid contract, so that's kind of what we went off of. But this ideally is the size that we would like to have.
Okay. I would just follow up to a couple comments you made. Well, follow up to one comment you made and then a question. So it's interesting because I could see we're in a crowded area, or ambulance can't get in. You want to transport somebody that needs ambulance. Would you be able to put a stretcher, therefore, on this? Be able to transport a person on a stretcher to an ambulance?
Probably not a stretcher, I wouldn't imagine.
Okay.
It does have a bed in the back, but I don't think I'd want to put anybody in there unless you absolutely had to in an emergency.
Okay. And then, did you reach out to other police departments in the neighboring communities? They maybe have vehicles they use in this way to determine what their lessons learned were and build on that as far as...
Yeah, I know Yarmouth PD has one similar. It's a little bit smaller, and they have the 2-door version, I know that they use quite frequently for special events. Right from the beginning, I kind of wanted to go with the 4-door, just for the availability to, like I said, to be able to carry more people, than the 2-door would allow.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Matt?
Question on staffing. When you have officers out on long-term disability or military deployment, are you able to backfill that staffing through existing officers, or do you have to open positions?
Yeah, that's what we do. Like, for example, right now, since we have 2 sergeants that are out, so not to cause the sergeant ranks to be depleted, what I did was I created an interim sergeant, so I promoted a patrolman temporarily to fill that position. Just like I said, so that the sergeants aren't, getting killed with overtime and being forced to work and everything else. Yep. So that's typically what we do. We will backfill take people from other places and move them around as necessary.
Does that generally affect our overtime cost, or do you have enough staffing that?
It does. I mean, it does eat into the overtime budget. We do have, on the patrol side, we do have some flexibility where we have people doubled up, where it may not create an overtime situation by moving somebody, or at least not have a huge impact. And we do take that into account when we're doing things, we're moving people around. What the impact's going to be on the overtime budget, as well as, the staffing in general for each shift.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Bud?
I was just going to add, anytime there's a long time injury or absence in either the public safety departments, it gets very expensive, because obviously you're paying the person who's out and then either backfill or to cover. But when you think about the number of staff in each of those departments, it's inevitable that I would say most years we have 1 or 2 people out on long-term injury. It's just how the ball bounces.
And it wouldn't work to make it 40 to cover for that?
In the past, when we've looked at it, it wouldn't. It doesn't.
Yeah, no, we're at a pretty good place right now with the staffing level that we're at, and with that position that was added last year. I think we have enough pieces that we can plug some holes if need be, and still do quite well, so.
Nancy?
Just, you made me think of where are we on this year's overtime budget?
I'm not exactly sure. I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay, just
I know we're in a good place. We still have quite a bit of room. I can tell you that in the dispatch center, this year we've gotten, we get some money from 911 through a grant that helps cover dispatcher overtime. And this year we were able to, we may even still be using it. Are we still using that? Yeah, so we're still actually using the grant funds currently, which we've never gotten into March before. And again, that goes down to our staffing because we don't have any openings. You know what I mean? So basically the grant is still actually covering all of the overtime for dispatch up to this point. A lot of times, there's been years where we've been out in November, and have to tap into our regular dispatch overtime budget.
And then, maybe I missed it, but where are we in the contracts? What year are we in the? And it's across
Those
the
go
board,
through
right?
fiscal year 2028 in all the departments. So
Yeah.
we have roughly 2.5 years to go.
Thank you.
Still.
Chief, how are you?
Hi.
Great presentation, and it's not on here, but I did have a question. So last year, I think it was In Good Health donated $100,000, I think, for the school resource program.
Yes.
And how is that applied to budget-wise? Is it taken off the top? Is it, or?
Yeah, so this year it's jumped to 200,000.
Okay.
So for example, we made sure they gave us the donation by the end of the calendar year. So for what will be voted in May, if we didn't have their donation, the police department would be 200,000 more.
Okay. All right, yeah, I thought.
So it's shown like on the budget summary form, it's shown as a deduction from that, in the binders as like a deduction from a donation.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you.
Matt?
The problem with questions, they lead to more. So has In Good Health indicated whether or not they intend to do that again this year?
They signed an agreement with the town to do it indefinitely. If they ever decide to back out, which I don't think is likely, they would give us at least a year's notice, which is why we asked for the money by the end of, so we're preparing the budget, we would know a year in advance.
Okay. We wouldn't be caught.
We'd have time to figure something out? Yeah.
With that, giving, the donation, and it was, 100, then 200, is the contract just for a donation in general, or is it
It's for
expected to go up?
200,000, and then I think, Bill can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it says like if costs greatly exceed that, we could approach them. The base salary of both officers is covered by that 200,000, so that's good.
Anybody else for Chief Keen? Okay. Thank you very much. Chief Burke, from the Fire Department.
All right. All right, good evening. Bud, you can go to the next slide. So the topics tonight, I'll cover, do a quick year in review, talk a little bit about FY27, overtime, your favorite topic, ambulance billing, cost reduction and recovery, some personnel changes, and we've already touched on the combined DPW fire station. Next slide. So a couple things for call volume wise. So we exceeded 5,000 calls, 5,202 for this year. So for context, when I started many years ago, we did 1,200. So we're up 4,000 calls from when I started my career. So we're averaging between 100 and 200 calls increase a year. We're a little bit higher this year. On the community risk reduction side, so that's when we do a lot of our preventative mitigation measures. Fire prevention did their inspections. A couple programs that we have going in combination with the health department is our medical waste machine program, which is 12 years old now. We're averaging 1,400 pounds of remediated medical waste. Quick PSA, if you have sharps at your home, you can bring them to the firehouse on Katuitt Road. They will be disposed of for free. So we've been doing that, like I said, for 12 years. We've had close to 380 people visit us and drop off the medical waste. And we started a medication remediation and disposal program called the Leave Behind. So if you have expired medications, there's a powder you can add to those medications, inert the medication, and throw them out. So again, that's just part of our risk reduction profile that I wanted to mention. Next slide. So back to the future. Next slide. So just context, and I've been chief since 2018, so just to give you an idea of the last 8 years, what we've looked at. In 2017, 2,500 roughly EMS calls, 750 to 1,000 were from medical facilities. Spalding Rehab, Cape Heritage, Urgent Care Center. 60% of those calls were what we consider advanced life support. At the time, we were not doing the cost recovery CPE Medicare reimbursement. Move ahead 2 years, we increased to over 3,000 calls, roughly the same for the medical facilities. ALS went up to 75%. We started CPE cost recovery, $120,000. Next slide. So now bring us to 2025. We're maintaining 6 ambulances. 4 of those are ours, 2 are shared with other departments, and I'll get into the cost sharing with those in a minute. Over 3,600 medical emergencies this year, 2,800 transports. The number I'd like you to concentrate on, 82% of the calls were for advanced life support. And I'll stop there for a second. Why is that? Aging population. And when you see a significant aging population, the health issues that go with that, we see that. So that's a 22% jump in the time I've been chief from basic life support to advanced life support. And I only see that either stabilizing or increasing, again, depending on the population. Our CPE reimbursement this year was $200,000. And a couple things. We try to apply grants for different pieces of medical equipment, our LifePak monitors. Due to the government shutdown, we're still waiting to hear if we did get that grant. But one of the things we talked about is instead of coming and asking for 4 LifePaks, 4 stretchers in bulk, we thought this year to add the cost of 1 each to the actual new ambulance that we purchase. So not only are we spreading out the purchases over a period of time, but it comes as a package with the ambulance. So when you see the ambulance request of $450,000, part of that is what we're trying to do to set ourselves up for we get each piece of equipment as a package with the ambulance instead of the old way of doing business, give me 4 of this, give me 4 of that. So we're going to try that this year, which I think is going to improve things as we move forward. Next slide. So on cost reduction and recovery, a couple things. So we were just talking about people that are out injured. And I have to give Bud a lot of credit and support for this. We started looking at somebody out long-term injury, we have to replace them with overtime. For discussion's sake, overtime rate is $75 an hour. What we've been doing is anybody that we interview that is qualified, we offer them a provisional position for that person at $30 an hour. So instead of us paying $75 an hour, man-for-man, person-to-person replacement, we're bringing somebody in that we hope to hire permanently in the future to see what they're like, have them fill a gap. They are already qualified as firefighters, EMTs, or paramedics. We're on roughly year 3 of that. It's worked out fantastic, and Bud can atone to it. We've had 1 or 2 people a year fill these gaps. So we're seeing savings in the overtime with that. I think that's important. Ambulance billing fees. So we took a look at this. As long as I've been here, it's pretty much been the same company that we've used. We decided to do something different, do a request for proposal, see what we get. There's more companies out there now. We ended up getting a new company who came in, and just for discussion's sake, 3% is what these ambulance billing companies will take from the ambulance fees. The new company is 2.85%, so we will have some savings with that. The other thing is, and we talked about this as a committee 4 years ago, on-duty EMS recertification. So when I was in front of this committee in 2021, we talked about overtime. People were getting overtime for the continuing education. We have since, through negotiations, operational changes, have turned that all over to on-duty. So what does that mean? Every paramedic would get 60 hours of overtime. Say we have 40 paramedics for discussion's sake, that's 2,400 hours of overtime research that we are now taking off the books and including into on-duty training, which is important. And finally, stock vehicle purchases. When we look at purchasing apparatus, it's expensive. The one thing I'm not beholden to is customization. If you have a truck on the lot, it's got 4 wheels and it'll drive, we'll take it. We have a mechanic that can do things, can make alterations as needed. So just our Quint ladder truck that we bought in 2018 for $744,000 is now roughly $1.6 million. The new fire engine in 2023 that arrived within 11 months, if you've been following the apparatus issues in the United States, it's 3 to 4 years to get a truck. How did we get one in 11 months? We took it off the lot. Hey, we'll take it. We did some alterations, $610,000 is what it cost us. That same truck now, $850,000. One of the things I talked to the town manager about, we looked at is there's still this 2 to 3 year lag time with apparatus. Let's secure a truck now that's not going to be here until 2028 where we can lock the price in. The same truck that you see that was 610, that same exact engine, carbon copy, no changes, will be here in 2028 at a cost of $880,000. So we're trying to stay ahead of the curve with apparatus purchasing. And again, these long lead times, even for ambulances, we've had to get creative in our thinking. And I think we're in a really, really good place apparatus-wise now, staying ahead of the curve with all the trucks that we do have in service. All right, next slide. Quickly on the regional dispatch, I think it's important that we discuss that or give you an update. I participated in the interviews for the regional dispatch director, the town of Barnstable. We'll be hiring that person within the next, hopefully, 60 days to get the project off the ground. Building plans have already been reviewed. They've been submitted for design phase construction. We're looking at construction around 2027, completion in 2028 with a cutover in mid-28 potentially. That building is being constructed right next to the Barnstable Police Station on Finney's Lane. You'll see it. It's an 8,500 square foot, 1-story building that will house the dispatch operations for Barnstable, Yarmouth, and Sandwich. It will pay for the first 5 years of the grant program is 100% paid for by the state. Year 6, it's 25%. The town's responsible for 75%. The state will cover through the grant. So there's going to be significant savings. I'll let the town manager discuss that a little bit more. But operationally, I think it's important that we understand when we go to regional dispatch, equipment costs that we are paying now in our budget, IT costs, software costs, now get absorbed by the regional center and the state. That comes off of our budget line, which is important because everything is digital and everything is technology now. So the transition to this, the full transition in 2028, and this has been in the works, and Bud will concur for like 3 or 4 years just to get to this point. It's a significant savings for the town. Operationally, it ties in with the future. Cooperative purchasing, it's going to be a good move all the way around. So I just wanted to give the folks here an update on kind of where that stands. Again, cutover is not for another 2 years at least, but the building design, the construction and everything will start. You'll start to see more on that. And more importantly, the executive director will be in place to start doing a lot of this work, lead-up work as we go. Next slide. So quickly on the shared ambulance. So Cotuit Fire District and us got together. We were trading in our ambulance. They ended up buying it. They brought it right back to our place. Our mechanic fixed it up. And this is an extra ambulance. It's housed in Cotuit, is their second ambulance. But if one of our ambulances goes down, we take it and put it in service. It was such a good program. Well, there's a couple things. One of the neighboring departments is now asked to join part of the cooperative program where there's a fee that they have to pay to join that we maintain. But we've used this ambulance multiple times, and the best example I can give is Memorial Day weekend last year. 2 of our ambulances went down on Friday, and this ambulance and the next one you're going to see, it took 20 minutes to go get it and bring it to the station. It's already fully equipped. The equipment is paid for by the other community. So Joint Base Fire shares this ambulance with us. They paid for all the equipment. We don't pay anything. The only thing we pay is the maintenance, for the maintenance. If it's a significant piece of equipment or a part, it's cost shared with the town or the entity that we've shared the ambulance with. So why do we do this? Protection. If we lose an ambulance or two and you have to wait 2 years to get an ambulance, we have protection. We need to maintain 3 ambulances in this town minimum, 1 at each station. A lot of times all 4 are out. So this protects us. It also allows us to rotate these 2 ambulances into the operation and take the primary trucks offline for a month. Preventative maintenance, just rest. Just take the trucks off the road for a month, rotate these trucks in, extend the longevity of the ambulances, so maybe we're not buying an ambulance every year. Maybe it's every other year. So this has been, it's been excellent. We've really reaped the benefits of this over the summer, and it's something that other departments are starting to kind of mimic as we go forward, because again, if you get an ambulance in an accident, you're looking at 2 years to get that ambulance back or get a new one. This protects us. And the one that you see there from Joint Base Sandwich Shared Ambulance was on the island of Nantucket. Never went on the highway. It had 12,000 miles when we got it, and it was free. And we put it in service. Our mechanic did some work. It was a little rough the first time we took it on the highway because it hadn't been on the highway. But that's a 2013. That's a 13-year-old truck that runs great. And we have the maintenance staff to be able to maintain it. So I'm very happy about that. I think it's helped us, like I said, and it gives the opportunity for us to rest some of the frontline trucks. A couple of personnel changes. Deputy Sean Butler is retiring May 8th, so we're looking for hopefully an internal replacement. And then we have some retirements coming up. So everybody that was hired in 2000, roughly, is now hitting the 28 to 30-year mark. So we're looking at 3 to 4 potentially this year, and another 3 to 4 the following year. So there's going to be a significant shift in this department. Age-wise, it's going to be a younger department, but these are ones that I know of. Sometimes people decide a little sooner. Sometimes they hang around a little longer, but we're definitely looking at 6 to 8 in the next 2 years that will be retiring. So on the personnel side, that's what we're looking for. And just to summarize, our command structure is a fire chief, a deputy chief, fire prevention, and an EMS officer. So there's the 4 of us with an administrative assistant, office manager that runs everything. It's lean, it works great, totally satisfied with it. There's no need for additional personnel, no need for additional overhead. The staffing of 44 firefighters is where we needed to be 30 years ago. We identified it 5 years ago and made it happen. We are not looking for more personnel. We are very happy with where we are at with that magic number of a minimum of 10 at the start of a shift. So overall, the health of the department is in good shape. I'm very satisfied where we're at administratively, operationally, equipment-wise. I think we're in a really good place. Next slide. I think that's the last one.
I think that's it.
Okay. Questions?
Questions? Chief Burke. Nancy?
Thank you for this. Questions. Same one on overtime. How are we doing so far for this?
I'm going to jinx myself right now. I'm telling you. So we're in the positive, meaning we are not in the hole by about 25,000. That's with the storm. So that's after the storm. So again, Bud's right. Somebody will go out tomorrow, but as of now, and there's a couple reasons for that. That matrix report from 2021 that we looked at, all of those changes that were recommended in that report have been implemented. We're starting to see the benefits of that. And again, I'll harp on the provisional firefighter thing. That is significant. Because if you look at a firefighter out for a year is $75,000 in overtime, give or take. When you look at a provisional at $30 an hour, you're saving a significant amount of money. And it's not that we're getting a lesser qualified person, we're getting a potential future candidate that we can evaluate.
Chief, if I could just add,
Yeah.
like, one of the important things with that is if someone's out for that long and the way the shifts work in the fire department, like that person's coworkers know eventually they're going to be ordered to work overtime.
Yes.
We couldn't do this unless we had the union's support to go ahead and go ahead with these hires. So each time we check it with them because they know it may save some wear and tear on themselves. In addition, it gives us a good opportunity to try to see, is this person worth, hiring for a full-time job? And that's happened a couple times. Or is this person not worth it? And that's happened a couple times too. You may quickly ask, why don't we do this in the police? And the big difference is if you're a certified, EMT or a paramedic, you have the skills to go in the back of an ambulance. If you haven't been to the State Police Academy or through local training, we're not going to give you a gun and a badge to go out on the road. So it's a little bit different. But all in all, like for the times it's worked a lot of the times, and even when it hasn't worked, we've learned something from it. So all in all, like we were appreciative of the union's support to do it, but that's sort of why a similar program wouldn't work in police.
Just
Go ahead, Nancy.
We haven't talked about response times tonight. Where are we in those?
So we're good in terms of response times. We are meeting 90% of the time the national standard for that. But I always remind people that the fire station that is in your district may not be the one that shows up. And that does skew some of the response times, right? So again, if the calls all fall the way they're supposed to, and each district gets the call, we're going to meet the 5-6 minute mark, no problem. But if you live in the Great Hills development off of Chase Road, and East Sandwich is out, and Katuitt Road is out, it's coming from downtown. So you're looking at double digits in terms of response time. Now, to support Chief Keen, his officers are out in the district and get there first within a certain amount of time and render initial aid. But again, people sometimes wonder, the East Sandwich Station, they should have been here 3 minutes ago. And it's no, we had multiple calls going on. It had to come from another outside location. So it can skew the overall numbers, but if you just look in district call numbers, we are 90% of the time meeting the national standard.
Do we have to rely on out of town for many first response?
Yep, so mutual aid, it's a very unique system in the fire service. It's all laid out strategically, both fire and EMS wise. So as soon as we know all 4 of our ambulances are out and that call comes in, the dispatch staff automatically calls county control, which is out at the sheriff's department. They know which ambulance to call. West Barnstable, Bourne, Mashpee, they will come into town and handle the call, and vice versa, we will do the same. With that being said, 10 years ago, we were asking for more than we were giving. We were being bad neighbors. But with the staffing of getting to 10, it's the flip side now. We are not asking as much, and the other towns have met our staffing. Bourne's the same number, Mashpee's getting close, Joint Base. So we're seeing that level out, which is good. A telltale sign, this last storm, 125 calls. We asked for mutual aid twice. That's it. Handle 123 calls on our own, and the other towns did the same. So I think that's important.
Go ahead, Bud.
I think it's important too to state, we knew the staffing that we needed for a long time, but to get there, we had to chip away. And then if you guys recall, when we started that FY25 and beyond effort, it included $200,000 for fire overtime to try to make it possible to live within the budget or not ask for as much if we went over. And on police, it was for those an extra officer on the 4 to midnight shift, which we were able to accomplish. The social worker that works out of the police department but helps all departments, including the school. So we worked hard to get to that level, and it's really proving its worth that, in terms of efficiency and being able to give good service to the public, it's really helped kick us up another notch. And I know Paul hasn't gone yet, but, 5+ years ago, the committee was questioning, we don't want to keep doing road bonds, do a road bond, we do the work, and then we ask for another road bond. And so what we determined, us all working together, was if we could come up with an extra $650,000 to put into Paul's budget, we would hopefully stave that off for a really long time. And we're not even a full year into that, but we were able to accomplish that in Paul's budget. So I mean, we're seeing the rewards for the things that we put in place, and there were reasons we did it. And now that we have those in place, that's why you're seeing a budget request of less than 3%, and I hope it's the same next year.
Jackie, go ahead. Let's see.
I just
follow up.
I just have one more. Are we still looking to keep a small amount of dispatchers in our own, the command center
For the,
after we go to?
yeah, we go with the regional, so the police will call a couple of dispatchers to handle the activity in the police station. But all fire operations will be at the regional center at that point, transition over.
Thank you.
Chief can explain it better than I can, but like when we were looking at doing the regional dispatch, was concerned in the police department because many times the dispatchers are the only staff in the department on 4 to midnight, or especially midnight to 8 a.m. Others are on the road, and we didn't want to have a so-called dark station where we would close the front door because you never know if someone drives up and knows, like, there may have a car issue, there may be a domestic, but we want to have that opening. And I really give Chief Keen and Deputy Bound and Bob Sminky, who's the supervisor of our dispatchers, they worked to try to come up with a solution. And when they shared it with me, really the cost to have those dispatchers there is more than a civilian, but it's better to have a qualified person there than a civilian just to keep the station open. So it made sense. And one of the things that we've spitballed a little bit about with the regional group is, hypothetically, the regional station goes down, they may have to send it somewhere else. And we're almost saying, like, hey, we'll be the backup, because then they would pay for all of our equipment, all of our computer upgrades that happen regularly. So I really think in the long run, this regional dispatch will not only give better service to the public, but we're going to save a lot of money annually. Just to refresh your memory on the budget presentation and that one slide in the presentation, based on the state's review of Barnstable, Yarmouth, Sandwich, if we combined, Sandwich would save, and this was on the dollars back 4 years ago when they did the study, save $700,000 a year when we went to this changeover. Personnel only, exclusive of the capital costs that we're not having to pay for. Plus, they're now another town's employees, not ours, so we're not paying workers' comp, we're not paying health insurance, we're not paying retirement. Will Barnstable charge us for that? So far, they haven't done. Barnstable has been incredible in terms of the support they've given this effort. And again, that was based on dollars 4 years ago. So it wouldn't surprise us by the time it actually kicks in. We may save more than that. As you guys know, how fiscal years like fall, it's strange, and haven't had a public construction project yet. They come into time on budget, but oftentimes they don't come in on schedule. We think the full year we will realize that full savings would be FY30. Just an estimate for now, but it's dependent on 2 more state grants, but they've been paying for a lot of what we've been doing. And I just want to say one more time, cannot thank Barnstable enough. They have a full-time architect in-house who's been bird dogging and doing all this work, not charged us a thing. And as Chief said, they already ran the ad for the executive director because they know how much work's going to have to take place to get this ready for 2 years from now. So they're getting ready to hire that individual right now. And they were good enough to have our HR department and Chief Burke go through the resumes, pick out who they thought the finalists should be, and then sit in on the interview. So can't thank them enough. And once we have more details, like a year and a half from now, we'll definitely do a bigger presentation, but it's going really well.
Jackie.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to do was confirm, and it was the FY30 that we were.
That's roughly when we think it will be a full fiscal year where we're getting the whole benefit.
There might be some in
Yeah.
FY29. I think really to piggyback off of what Ed was saying, I mean, this is pretty impressive, like some of these cost containment initiatives, pretty creative. The shared dispatch, the shared ambulances with town, provisional billing fees, the research, truck vehicle. Yeah, those are long-term kind of programs that were creative and that are paying off now. And it's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
Jeff.
I have questions that are going to be related to what you learned from this recent storm relative to the budget. We're budgeting today, but we have to be thinking about tomorrow, and actions we take today will influence tomorrow. So, respect to the storm, and again, as I did for the police and fire, I think overall excellent response and support to the community. What did you learn about your equipment? Was it sufficient? There were roads that were blocked. There were trees down, wires down. I know I saw an ambulance in our neighborhood during the storm. So, you were able to get out and about, but what did you learn? And going forward, is that going to impact your thinking around equipment, meaning from a point of view of when we're predicting storms and what you bring on and so forth, and how that might impact budgets in the future?
So what we learned was from 2013. NEMO, I worked at, learned a ton that was applied, believe it or not, to this storm. We had 2 fire department dedicated plows outside of Paul's people. So we have a mechanic who has a department issued truck with a plow, and we went to DNR and asked if we could borrow their plow when we put a second experienced firefighter plow operator. We were able to chase all the calls with those 2 plows. On top of that, our brush breaker, which is a very unusual looking truck with the steel bars, could make it down any road even with 4 feet of snow. We learned that from 2015. So pairing that with the National Guard and what we learned 10 years ago, we said, do not send the ambulance to the front door of the house. Stage it at a major thoroughfare. Send the larger vehicle in to bird dog what's going on. Have the plows go ahead, clear a path, and then bring the ambulance in. So in terms of equipment, we're good. How would I change it? I think I'd buy another plow. A Boss plow. This is a small thing, but I think we learned the V plows are better than the old school plows on the pickups. So I think I would do that. But other than that, staffing, we hit it out of the park in terms of projected what we would need to be able to carry through 96 hours worth of operations. And there's a sweet spot you got to find that you got to try to predict, and we were pretty close, meaning work rest cycles we could rotate people through. You weren't on the ambulance for 4 days. You were on the ambulance for 12 hours. You rotated onto the engine where you got a little bit of a break. You were back on the ambulance. So I think all the things we've learned over the past 20 years from all these winter storms actually worked this time, fire department wise, operationally. There's not a lot I can pick at that I think I would do differently. And again, the only piece of equipment that I would change is getting a V plow instead of a regular plow. All of our large apparatus operated the way they were supposed to, and they're all surplus military vehicles. They're all well maintained. It was $10,000 each to just retrofit and paint those, and they proved their worth in spades during the storm, getting everywhere. There was not a place we could not reach with our equipment, so I'm very satisfied.
Thank you. I don't know if any of you guys want to say anything, or should I just want to say a couple things that I don't know. I'm sure we don't publicize it much, but we have an emergency management set up and a local emergency planning committee. But internally, we have an emergency management director who is Chief Burke, and we have 2 deputy emergency management directors, who is Chief Keene and Director Tilton. In the old days, i.e. 10 years ago, we had some really qualified volunteers in town to sort of fill those roles. And I think we realized as people transitioned and got out of doing it, it was getting harder and harder to find qualified people. So this is how we've structured it. I can't stress enough, because I hear the horror stories in other towns, like these 3 individuals work together so well, and there's checks egos at the door. They do what has to be done for the town as a whole. The public doesn't realize that during a storm, and it's one thing we learned with COVID, like how much capability we have remotely. So we were holding 2 internal Zoom meetings a day for about 6 days. And I would say the least amount of people we had on any of those was 12, and most of the time we had 16. And it included Dr. Maruzcek and Mike, who's the facilities director at the school. It included the 5 of us. It included our new communication coordinator position, which we got better word out to the public. People don't realize is, Leanne Drake, who oversees community services and natural resources, was on every call. Guy Boucher, even though he was without power down Cape, he was on every call. Nick Giordano, the harbor master, was like the roving reporter with the little head satellite dish, driving everywhere and telling us what he was seeing on the road. I mean, it's the amount of coordination and cooperation. I would stack us up against anyone. And I know if you think about electric lines that come on the Cape, we're like the first town that really entertains those lines. So it made sense probably that we got things back a little bit quicker. But I have no doubt that one of the reasons we got it back as a community as a whole was because of these three people and the embedded person that Comelectric gave us, Eversource, to actually sit in our station, and the only two people in town who can ask that individual to make something a priority are the two chiefs. And it worked incredibly well. We use those services to the hilt. We go through the regional planning committee at the county to MEMA like we're supposed to do. We're registered online with Eversource, so we can explain what our priorities are in terms of getting power back. Won't talk out of school, but there's half the towns don't even sign up for that stuff. And we do it every single time, and we've done it for years. So it's not by happenstance, and sometimes we get whacked, so we can't get power back quickly. But we try, and the team effort that goes into it is second to none, and I just want to thank them. To me, the unsung heroes of every emergency, and I know the chiefs would back me up, are DPW. Like, police and fire tend to get the glory. People don't understand that DPW is out there before, during, and after. And Paul can tell you there was over 125 trees across 125 roads, and you can't plow a road if there's a tree across it, and that was one of the biggest problems that we hit. Most of those trees took down power lines. I can't tell you how many times Paul had to divert his crews off of their assigned tasks to go pull out Eversource trucks, and that was more important because if we got the power back, it made it bearable. So we did that constantly throughout the storm, and many times, as Eversource told us, you see the wires hanging, but you don't realize that sometimes they have to get it to a box that's now buried in a chunk of snow, and when we would send people out to clear that for them, it allows you to reinstate power quicker. So we really worked hard to try to do the right things, and I don't know, I thought for such a difficult storm, the crew did exceptionally well.
Anyone else for Chief Burke? Jim?
Yeah, just one question with the regional call center, the dispatch center. I know sometimes when it comes to regional call centers, there's concerns of small town like Sandwich. They may not know back roads, small roads, private roads. Do either of you have those concerns, or?
I don't, just because of the software and the technology. It doesn't matter where the call is being dispatched from for us. It comes across our CAD system in our truck. And the reality is we used to hire a lot of local people. Even my staff are from over the bridge. So the local flavor that we used to have when Chief Keen and I started, a lot of that's eroded. That's just, the way it is. But in terms of, I have zero concerns about lack of local knowledge because the way the system and the way we're setting it up, we should have some fail safes. But you want to add anything? No? Okay.
Bob?
Great presentation, both of you, great presentation. Just two quick items. Historically, medical transport calls have been disproportionately to the hospitals and other medical facilities in town, as much as 35% of your total call volume. Is that still true? And is there anything to be done about getting additional monies from those facilities to help offset some of your costs?
So part one is 2 out of the 3 facilities are still significant. One of them, and I'll just say the Urgent Care Center for Cape Cod Healthcare, decompresses a lot of our calls. A lot of the stitches calls we used to get, people go there, they get it taken care of. So we don't see it as much. The nursing home still, aging population, we're going to see that. Where we recoup cost with that is twofold. The Medicare billing rates that we charge are locked in for facilities like that, but the CPE money that we recoup, that's where we're making it back, where the consultant comes in and says, you need to recover your vehicle costs, and you only were reimbursed X amount for this patient where it should have been more, and they're bridging that cost recovery for us.
That's super, thanks. So just one related question, and it was around cost recovery. So not thinking about those medical facilities where you are billing insurance or billing the person you transported, what What roughly are you seeing in terms of collection?
So the new company we have is about 90%. So we average in the high 80s, give or take. We don't have a lot of mass health. So most people have insurance, we're billing it, we're getting whatever that percentage is. The difference with us, we don't go after the residual, right? So you get a residual, I'm not chasing you down for that. I abate it, write it off, and we still do well with that. I think the new company we have, I'm very confident in their abilities to code everything correctly, and there's a reason why they pull 90% recovery rates for their billing. They're very sharp, Massachusetts-based company. They came down on Monday to check in with us, and I think that's important. For me as a chief, I don't want the taxpayer to have to pay anything residual, right? We take what we can from the insurance companies, we put it back into the operation as cost recovery, and then we move forward. Yep.
Nothing else for Burke? Okay, very good. Last but not least, Paul Tilton from the DPW.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so my presentation tonight, I'm going to give an overview of our operational departments and talk a little bit about capital as well. I'll save sort of the meat and potatoes, the infrastructure program for the end, because I'm sure you have some questions, and hopefully I can answer some of the questions you've asked earlier, and I'm happy to try to answer any at the end of the presentation as well. So starting off with the capital request, our total is $580,000. And there are 3 items here that are beyond their service life. We've put a few off. We're hoping to get some sooner, but they're very expensive, and hopefully we get the support at town meeting for these. 2 of them listed here, the brush chipper and the bucket truck, kind of go hand in hand, and they're essential to weekly usage, if not daily during peak times. They're used constantly, and not only essential for daily operations, but really you realize how critical they are during storm operations. We absolutely needed these 2 pieces of equipment, and unfortunately when they're down we have to rent them out. The chipper is $2,000 a week. Very difficult to rent the bucket truck if even out there, so we have to hire contractors to do that. So not real cost effective when these are down and we have to rent them out. So those 2 items are really critical for operations in terms of highway infrastructure operations. The Packer truck, another essential vehicle that we use for the transfer station almost on a daily basis, heavily used especially in the summer when we're picking up trash at the beaches as well. That another one, it's beyond its service life, and we're looking to replace that one as well. So these replacements will maintain operational reliability, reduce downtime, and control long-term repair cost. For the sanitation and the transfer station department, the quick update really focuses on the fact that our contract with ReWorld, which is formerly CMAS Covanta, expired in 2025, and we've had basically a sweet deal for 35 years when we first signed a contract with CMAS. The tipping fee, which is what the cost is for the tons that you drop off at the incineration plant in Rochester. The tipping fee last year was $85. It's going up to $100, and will continue to increase in the future, mainly because the cost of solid waste disposal is very expensive. There's no more facilities that are being sited in Massachusetts, and most of the facilities that are taken are out of state now. So that cost will continue to rise in the future. We had to bump up our sticker fees this year just to cover the initial cost. We are currently negotiating with ReWorld, hopefully for a 5 or 10 year contract, but we have a two-month extension right now until we finally resolve that contract. So hopefully we get it done for a longer term. And each and every year we're going to have to review our bag and sticker fees in order to offset the rising disposal cost. Winter operations, you heard a lot about that, so I won't go into too much detail. But some of the numbers here have changed. Obviously, instead of from 2 weeks ago when I submitted this, we have 17 instead winter storms instead of the 16. The storm cost from 2,000, which is a minor event, basically just treating the roads, mainly the major roads, and at the time to 50,000, which I think was a 12-inch storm back in January. Obviously, with the blizzard, it's a very expensive storm. Our initial cost estimates are about $160,000. We still have some invoices coming in. When you include that with the state resources we used, which hopefully the state is paying for, correct, right, Chief? Yeah. When you combine theirs and ours, it's probably over $400,000, which basically is our entire year budget. So it kind of tells you it wasn't a typical storm. You all know that. So it's very expensive to attack and operate during these storms. One remaining difficulty we have, and you heard before, is that we don't have enough private contractors. And that's been a problem probably for the last 5, 6, 7 years. I don't see it going away. There's an effort at the legislative level to try to help the private contractors with their insurance, to cover their insurance, because it's awfully expensive for them to cover their trucks these days, probably like $2,000 per truck. Even with incentives, it's very difficult to get them to come on board. Bud mentioned the emergency team, emergency management team, and I won't go into too much detail there, but I was part of that team. I don't know when it started, 10, 15 years ago, but since its inception, it's come a long way. And I'm even impressed what took place in some of the meetings we had. The communication was great, coordination was unbelievable, and throughout the meetings we had twice a day, when we said we need help here, someone stepped up. And that was always the case for any issue throughout that storm. So I'm appreciative of the chiefs here, but also the entire staff that was part of taking care of that storm. They did a wonderful job, so kudos to all of them. So the infrastructure and the pavement management portion of this is going to go into a little bit more detail. I'm going to try to answer some of the questions you have and talk about our plan now and moving forward as well. First, I'll start off with a reminder of FY25 and beyond. We were able to get 2 additional DPW laborers, which helped us out tremendously in terms of operations across all departments. We don't have specific jobs in specific departments for our laborers. They work across the board in terms of all departments. Because we're so small, we have to be flexible in that regard, so that helps. We also were able to get the $560,000 invested in the pavement management program. That included with the $650 a few years before that. And Chapter 90 gets us to $2.6 million available on an annual basis for our infrastructure projects. Some of the recently completed projects and ongoing, as you know, the Quaker Meeting House Road at Route 130 section was completed last year at $2.1 million. That includes the design fees as well. We completed the driveways at Oak Ridge and Forestdale School. This upcoming season, we intend to improve the parking lots as well as some ADA amenities out there. We did some work in the Jarvisville Historic District, roads and sidewalk upgrades. We will continue that this summer and fall as well. We'll continue our design of the next big intersection, Quaker Meeting House at Katuitt. We hope to get that out to bid fairly soon and start construction this year also. Some of the other things we've been focused on in terms of infrastructure and transportation are safety improvements townwide related to slowing speeds down and improving pedestrian safety. If you look at some of the roads that we have listed, again, here is a list of some of the recently completed projects. And I had a typo there that the recently completed and ongoing projects 2024 to 25 should be 226. So that some of those projects you see here will continue this season. The first 6 have been completed. Christopher Hollow is partially completed. We had to stop there in the winter. As soon as the snow melts, we'll get back out there and complete the drainage. And we also have a paving plan for that roadway as well. The other one's Canary Church. That's part of the Jarvisville historic area. We'll continue work out there this year also. The list that you see following that, I put a 2-year period sort of to give us some flexibility in terms of when we will do that, because things do change. Things always change each year, and we're constantly moving projects around and roads based upon a lot of different factors. I do caution the public not to get too focused on the time frame, but the things that can change, and we see each and every year. First of all, we assess the roads all the time, and we have our 5-year pavement management plan being completed this spring. So that'll give us a fresh look at some of the roads, the inventory. We'll evaluate each and every road. Some of the treatments might change. We might rearrange some of the order, and obviously the cost will change as well. Another factor is the Quakey Meeting House Road and Katuitt Road intersection. We don't know exactly how much that would cost. We're guessing $2 million. If it's higher, it might drop off some other projects. If it's lower, we can add and move some of the projects up. Winter impacts are another factor in changing this. We've already seen some roads that were absolutely blown apart because of the winter. What happens is some have very bad base, and when the water gets in the base, you see the frost heaves and it blows those roads apart. Because of that, some are worse than others on those lists. So we'll evaluate that this spring and adjust accordingly. Fuel costs are also a factor. Petroleum is in the asphalt binder. Fuel costs go up, so does petroleum. So that could change the price of the bids coming in. And the bid process is always an interesting process. Sometimes we have very competitive bids, sometimes we don't. That changes, how we arrange our list in terms of how much money we have each year. One issue we're probably going to run into this year is we rejected one bid because they have a bad history of work in other towns. They could potentially protest. If that's the case, it puts some projects on hold, so we have to rearrange some other ones and move the projects around. So just a lot of factors involved here in terms of this list. We will refine it as soon as we get the pavement management report in, which is due out again this spring. Some other areas I want to cover and some questions that came up is, one of them is, how do we measure productivity? And one way that I measure the productivity is, and I think some of you know this, that there are 351 towns in the state, and 292 of those are towns. And of the 292 towns, at 150 miles of public roads, Sandwich has the 13 most public road miles in the state, 13 out of 292. And I can guarantee you a lot of those towns have much more staff than us. And their staff per road mile is a lot higher percentage than what we have. We have about 25 people in DPW. 18 or 19 of those are laborers or / manager working laborers. So I think we're very productive in terms of what we accomplish given our small staff. Some other metrics that I use to measure productivity, the pavement management report. I've mentioned before the PCI, which is the pavement condition index, similar to a report card. 90 is good, 65 is failing, 30, 40 is not so good. So we have that townwide PCI that we look at. We'll have that report this spring updating that PCI so we can kind of see where we are after the additional funding that we got and how much that helped moving forward. Another metric is the number of streets or miles of roads that we repair each year, the number of drainage structures we repair each year, also work orders closed each and every year. Another question was, what cost savings initiatives have we taken or will we take in the future? And one thing we really focus on, and I mentioned in the past, is the preventative maintenance strategies, the crack sealing, the surface treatment of our roads. That's where you get the most bang for your buck. It extends the life of our good roads. That'll continue to be our focus. We do want to attack some of the roads that are really tough shape, but again, we want to focus on keeping those roads good.
Hey, Paul, can I just interrupt? Only because it's on the screen. But if you look, this was a page that I didn't have up when he was going down the last work planned for the future. But if you look at like those 3/4 of the roads listed at the bottom, they're all surface treatments and chip sealing. Look at the cost of those versus if you go to the prior page, look at the bottom on the roads where we need to do drainage improvements, and then look up at the top where we're on the old roads like Church, Factory, Harbor, Jarvis, look where we're having to do milling and top coat, way more expensive there than if we can just do a chip seal. So the key is to try to get to them while you can still do the chip seal before they get into the condition where it's worse. And only because he's taught me well through the years, like Paul basically says if they chip seal a road well, it should buy another decade before they have to do more. So that's our goal, is to get out of those roads we're having to do total reclamations for, but there are some in that condition, and then get more towards the chip seal.
Yeah, a very good point, and thanks for pointing that out. The industry standard is to do that. Every town's doing it. All the experts say to do that as well. And again, that's where you get your most bang for your buck. Are we taking care of some roads that are really tough shape? Absolutely, we are. We couldn't do that before we had the infusion of the funds. Just 5 years ago, my highway budget was $150,000. That with Chapter 90 got us just a little bit below $1 million. And that's well short of what we need for the annual budget. 2.6 is certainly going to help moving forward, attacking some of the roads that are in tough shape, but also focusing on the good roads as well. Back to some of the cost savings initiatives, we, as much as possible, we do our work in-house. As I said, our staff is very capable across the board of doing a lot of tasks, including paving, drainage work, patching. We cross-train all of our staff. We send them to courses. So we try to do a lot of the prep work for the big companies coming after to pave. That helps us save some money. We also aggressively seek infrastructure grants. We've received 9 grants totaling $1.6 million over the last 8 years. And that's helped us out substantially with all of our infrastructure projects. One of the big ones is the Complete Streets program. We got $400,000 for the Route 130 signal. We're chasing some additional grants. The Complete Street grants limits on how much you can get and how often you can get that as well. But we will continue to chase those infrastructure grants to help us move forward with our pavement management program. One of our top challenges with our infrastructure program, obviously the aging infrastructure is a big one. A lot of the subdivisions were built in the 80s, and a lot of the roads and the drainage systems especially are failing. Flooding is the root of all evil. If you have failing drainage systems, you have flooding, it gets into the road, gets into the base, and blows those roads apart. So we're trying to address some of the catch basins that are beyond their useful life as well on all of our public roads. Construction cost inflation continues to be a major factor. I don't see that going away. Workforce recruitment and retention is always difficult. We always want to try to provide a better work environment and training facility for our staff. One reason we're looking to hopefully get a new facility. The extreme weather and storm intensity, obviously a challenge for us moving forward. We're seeing more intense storms, more impacts to the infrastructure, more flooding, and that's something that's not going to go away, but something we're going to have to address in the future in terms of more resilient infrastructure for some of our roads and our catch basins. Funding is always an issue. I'm grateful that you supported the 2.6 at this point on an annual basis. At some point in the future, you're going to have to ask more. And the time will come when that happens. But I think with the 2.6 we have right now, we can get quite a bit done in the future. Another question was how many road miles are in the worst condition? Worst meaning that failing condition, requiring full depth reconstruction. And if you look back at the pavement management report, the most recent one from 2021, in terms of miles, 43 miles of the 150 miles need base rehabilitation, which is full reconstruction. If you break it down per roads, we have 617 roads. 190 of those roads need full depth reconstruction, or 31%. If you sort of take the rule of thumb, to reconstruct a road, it's about $1 million per mile. So if you take the 43 miles, and 43 million divided by 2.6 million we have each year, it'll take 17 years to complete all of those roads that are really bad shape. Unfortunately, if you did that, you're going to lose all the good roads because you're not putting any money into good roads, so you're back to where you started from. This doesn't count for inflation either. As I mentioned, fortunately, with the new funding, we're allowed to add more roads to the annual list, both from the surface treatment and the full depth reconstruction. So that's very helpful. And with that funding, we don't have to pick and choose the certain roads each year. We can go to a full subdivision and take care of a whole subdivision at this point. And it cuts costs for mobilization, so that's another benefit. So I think the best measure will be from when we first got that 2.6 until 5 years from now. And you can do a comparison before that and see where we were with it, under $1 million, and then the 2.6. I think there's going to be a significant difference in terms of what you see of the pavement condition index, the condition of the roads, what we can do in terms of taking care of the drainage as well. And I really think you're going to start to see the impacts of that 2.6 million that we have annually. So that's my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Questions for Paul?
Yes, thank you. Paul, thank you for that. Bill, could you put up the 2025 list last year? Last year you came before us requesting an extra sum. I think it was, what was it? 560,000. And you presented us with a sheet of paper. Yep, momentarily.
Yeah, I'm just having a little issue with the host right now.
It's called
You should be able to share it now.
Potential
Okay.
Potential 2025 DPW infrastructure projects. And of those, 14 appear on future lists. So, which total about $950,000. Is that $950,000 tucked away to work on those specific roads, or was that $950,000 used somewhere else? Or am I not understanding how the process works?
The 950 was a compilation of all those roads for that year?
Well, yeah, of the list from last year, for instance, the first group's a list. It's 2,042,06, whatever it might be. Of those roads, 14 roads appear on future lists, totaling $948,000. So are those the $948,000 you got last year that's still for those outstanding 14 roads? Was that money redirected to other projects, or is that money put aside in an escrow account to do those roads?
Yeah, it could be a combination of the two. My guess is that if we don't complete roads on that list, either we ran out of time or money, and those roads will get carried over to the following year.
14? At the total of $950,000? That seems like an awful lot.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly which roads we're referring to. Is it up here now?
Yeah, well, for the first list, Christopher Fall, well, I'll give you an example. Highfield Drive, I'm the homeowners association, the president of that homeowners association. So it's just not me speaking, it's 141 people speaking. Last year they came to me and said, Jim, what's happening with Highfield Drive? We're paying a lot on our taxes. I said, don't worry. DPW came before us, they explained it. They said, here's the list of the money we need. And you see the first list of roads. I said, Highfield Drive's the first list, we're all set. Lo and behold, Highfield Drive wasn't done last year, and it's on a future list. Yeah. So I guess the question is, and there's 13 other roads like Highfield. So the money you asked for last year to do those roads, totaling $948,000 roughly, is that money redirected somewhere else, or do you still have that money put in escrow to do those roads? I'm just trying to understand how the money you asked for last year was used last year.
Yeah. So my guess, based on looking at what I see up here, is that I know we did some roads in that subdivision. Highfield Drive, we didn't do all of the reconstruction roads last year. The funding was an issue at one point, and if you look at Quaker Meeting House Road to it, more money was allocated to that for this upcoming year. So, and as I mentioned, there are factors involved in moving these roads around. Each and every year that happens. I'd have to take a look at the exact roads you're referring to in terms of determining, how that money was diverted. But potentially, we didn't have enough money to complete all those roads.
You didn't have enough to complete them, or did we give you too much and it was diverted somewhere else?
Can I just jump in?
I just don't know how it works.
Diverting money, we can't, you said put money in escrow. We can't put money in escrow. So like, of the operating budget money, when it hits June 30th, unless there's a contract in place for that work, we can't carry it over. It goes back. My guess is what Paul's referring to is he uses a lot of the Chapter 90 money, which is state money. You can carry that over. But I think as he explained on Quaker Meeting House in Katuitt, for example, more got spent there. But I just don't want you to think like money was set aside in a special account, because we can't do that.
Well, I guess my question is, what happened to that $948,000 and if it wasn't used to pave those roads?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, some of those roads were probably shifted. Some of them maybe out into a future year, like Highfield got bumped to 26, 27.
14 of them were.
Yeah, it could have been the case for some other ones as well. And most likely, some of these costs may have been underestimated because we had escalation costs based upon the bids last year. So that, again, this is for planning purposes only. Once the bid comes in, we have to reconcile the cost each and every year.
And then if you go to the second group in which you wanted the specific $560,000 for, 4 of those roads continue to be carried over at about $192,000. And is that the same thing? Just that money that 192 was used somewhere else?
Again, either used somewhere else, or we didn't have enough money to cover the expenses, or we could have potentially ran out of time. And with the Chapter 90 money, as Bud mentioned, that's still there. That can carry over each year.
Right. I've just been on the Finance Committee for 2 years, so I didn't know if this was commonplace to, see that many roads not completed. To have you guys ask for money to do 28 roads, only do 14, have, almost $1 million used on something else. So it's not myself, it's just not myself asking. It's, again, my subdivision and I imagine other people in town as well. Just trying to understand how it works.
Kevin?
Money comes from the town, you can't carry over. If you don't use it, you've got to bring it back to the town. Now, Chapter 90 money you can carry over. How much do you have carried over in Chapter 90 money?
So the Chapter 90 money right now is, I think it's about 1.2 million. And we're saving some of that for the Katuitt Quaker Meeting House Road intersection. We don't know the cost of that. And there are some other big projects as well. We put some requests in for additional Chapter 90 money to cover surface treatment, some of the reconstruction projects also.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is we, a year ago, increased your budget by $560,000. We get roads repaired quicker and would address all of the needs. Are you able to spend all the money?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's really it. I just want to make sure.
I just say a quick caveat. You said to address all of the needs.
No, not all.
We would need $10 million in our budget
Absolutely.
every year. So we're addressing a lot more than we used to, and we're doing the best we can. And
No, I just want to make sure
I
that
see all the work that goes on and that they're overseeing. It's pretty.
to make sure that with the money that he's getting, that it's not, the Chapter 90 isn't getting built up every year because you just don't have the time and resources to do all the repairs. Make sure the money and the ability to do the repairs is commensurate.
I can assure you that we have the time and the staff to make sure that we spend that money each and every year. The luxury of Chapter 90 is we can carry that over for larger projects like the intersection project, which is what we're doing. But we don't have a problem spending money.
The follow-up, then I don't understand how 14 of those roads are still undone.
I'd have to take a look at exactly what roads they are, and I can talk to our engineering department in terms of why those got diverted, if they got diverted into this year, if we ran out of money, if we ran out of time. Some other roads may have moved up because of some of the factors I mentioned earlier.
Again, it's me then, because it sounded like you said you have enough money to do all the projects, but yet 14 of the roads are kicked down the road. But I won't delay it anymore.
Can I just say, every one of those lists is an estimate of what we'll be able to do. You know, so if one comes in higher and we have to spend more on a bigger project, that's what happens. It's not as granular as like, oh, we're going to get every single one of these roads that we give a list for 2 years down the road. Like, it's not possible.
No, I'm not concerned about that. The list itself, it's it's the financial amount you sought. So it's not the list. They sought and they came to us asking for more, and yet that money wasn't used for what it was sought for. So I guess that's a
We've
concern.
had that money for 7 months. Most of it's been the winter. Like, we just got that money on July 1st. So like
Perhaps
have,
that's the
what,
answer.
4
Perhaps
months,
that's the answer.
4 months left to go.
And that's what I'm trying to find out, how
This
exactly
is
it
the
works.
first year we've had that money. So to say that we've had that extra money all along is not.
Well, so will that money only be used this year? Or will that money,
It's in their operating budget.
Going
It's in
forward.
what's recommended next year. We hope to have at least 2.6 million every year between operating budget and Chapter 90 money. That was our goal. Bob.
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly, and for sort of just general understanding, because it was eye-opening to me, so I appreciate your patience, and just bear with me to make sure I got it right. There was a question about how we grade roads and conditions, and you articulated that we have approximately 43 miles of roads that are awful. My word, not your technical term. They're awful. They need to be rebuilt. And you looked at your current cash resources, the budgets available, and you suggested best case, it would take 17 years to address all of those roads, best case. Am I recalling correctly what you just said to this committee?
That is correct. The only thing I would add is that was from the 2021 report. We have since made some repairs, so.
Gotcha. I'm just trying to, for purposes of my own understanding, and for those few people who are playing along at home, who get up in the morning, perhaps look at the road and say, I've lived here 3 years, this road's terrible, and no one's done anything about it. I think the reality, your reality, giving staff, budget, resources, our collective reality, is that the individual looking at his terrible road may look at it his entire life and it won't change. That's just the reality, unless this committee and other committees gives you a heck of a lot more money. Do I have that sort of right?
I would say that's accurate, yes.
Terrific. Thanks.
Anyone else? Nancy?
Well, I saw this written somewhere, and I don't remember. It said that you needed people, or you were out doing something like replacing poles, and that didn't make sense to me. Do you replace poles?
I'm sorry, replace what?
Poles. Poles, like.
Poles?
Poles. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't say. It said that you were busy out replacing poles, or you needed a truck for replacing poles, and I wish I'd cut it out. I was surprised, so it's got to be an error in whoever wrote it.
Yeah, I don't know what.
Okay. All right, it just that was news to me, so, okay.
Jeff?
Let me first start like I started the other two, and thank you and your department for your efforts over the storm. It's kind of interesting. I don't know DPW. Not that I know the other two either, but that's not my background. But my background is measuring things. I did a lot of. I was one of the people that asked about measuring and what you do to measure and so forth, productivity and performance and getting things done. I don't know much about the roads, in the sense I wasn't here last year, it's my first year on and so forth, but sitting here as a member, you know, two things I'm taking away, which I think are important for the town, and maybe you do understand it, but I think it's important that town get a handle on this. And one is, as was stated, you know, the roads, though based upon the funds we're putting in now, the roads will never get repaired. I mean, you said the 2.6, if it was all used just to rebuild those roads, it would consume all the budget, and yet there are repairs that also need to be done, and you said roads are gonna deteriorate further. So my point is, the town needs to look at it, but I gotta tell you, as a member of this board, if you come back for money, we really need a good plan. Because that's the other thing I'm hearing is that, and I agree with you, Bud, I know how difficult it is. It's just it's really a guesstimate. We think we can get 26 roads, and then all of a sudden you get 13 of them done, and you had curbing issues, or you had infiltration, or you had other issues, and I understand it, but that's why it's so important that we have to get a better plan, a better understanding of that plan going forward, so that we can support you. Because it's going to be difficult to support funding if we now have a better idea of where the funds are going and what we're accomplishing and why we're not maybe accomplishing what we thought we were going to accomplish. Like I said, I'm new to this, but just sitting here and listening to members who have been here a long time, that's what I'm walking away with as you go forward. So I encourage you to look at that in the future before you come back. 'Cause I think it is going to take more funds. So it's kind of interesting. Your department has a lot of things you're responsible for besides roads, but roads appear to be most visible, right? That's what people get up in the morning and look at their road, and it's terrible. I also belong to an association, but we have unaccepted roads. We've got private roads, but we deal with it too. It's interesting. Roads are always on everybody's mind. There's 1,000 other things, but it seems that that's what they're focused on. And I know, not that it's a good indication, but looking at social media, that's what you hear in social media. The other thing I heard, is roads didn't get plowed. Roads didn't get plowed. I'm a realist. I know what went on and what goes on, and I know why my road didn't get plowed for a while and so forth. But a lot of folks don't. So this question about benchmarking, measuring, and being able to consistently tell a story about the performance of the organization and how we're spending the money, I think we need to do a better job. It's just, and you could say, what's this got to do with finance? Well, I think it's important because we have to help support, getting the budgets, improving the budgets, and part of that is what you can give us for data and measurements and consistency and so forth. So I encourage you to do that. I am familiar with one of your organizations, one of the groups in your organization, which I did want to say a word about, and that is I spent many years on the planning board and interacted a lot with engineering. And we're very fortunate. We have a very solid engineering department in this town. We really do. They're solid. My background's civil engineering. I didn't go into civil engineering, but that's what I was trained as, so I know a bit about it. Solid individuals. And one of the things that's interesting is that a lot of what you're dealing with for road repairs is because many years ago we never enforced, when developments were built, things like drainage, proper drainage and so forth, and today they are. They really stand firm with contractors. They work well with contractors, and that's so important because that's going to affect our budgets going forward. So I encourage you to continue to do that as we continue to go forward. The other area is facilities. Maintaining facilities costs us less in the future if we pay attention today about how we're building them, building resiliency into them, and so forth. And I know we've got 2 big projects coming up, the fire department and the DPW, and it's going to be very important that we get that resiliency in there as we go forward. So we've done a lot of good things, but there's a lot of things that need to be done. I think, people can look to fire and they can look to police and they think response time and there are a lot of other measurements too. I think the DPW and they say things aren't getting done, but things are getting done. So how do we better portray that and how we're spending the fund? I think some of the members on this committee are confused about it. I encourage you to take that away. I have a question on the transfer station. The transfer station is you know, it's like a little bubble, right? You can put your hands around it, you can say, here are the things that are in the transfer station. And in order to use a transfer station, you have to have a sticker, and if you want to leave trash bags, you have to buy the bags. The total cost of the transfer station, so we have equipment, we have people, we have costs that we pay to have tipping costs and so forth. How much of that cost in total is covered by the cost of the stickers and the bags?
So the stickers and the bags cover the majority of that because we were an enterprise fund. We also have fees for other recyclables as well. And the day trip fees, bulky waste, was fees for all those as well, for different items, TVs, computers, mattresses, things of that nature. But generally, we can't profit. We can't make any money off of this. It's just to cover our expenses through mainly the stickers and the bag fees.
And I'm not suggesting you profit on it. No, you know, the town suggesting that we look when we can identify services that we try to recover as much as we can, since those services are going directly to that user, and shouldn't have to ask other taxpayers to pay for it. But you said a majority. We're covering a majority of the cost. Do we know? Is it 85? Is it 90? Is it 65?
So if I can jump in there, so 80% of the transfer station costs are covered between stickers and the bag revenue.
Thank you, Bill. Okay.
Any other questions? You
Yeah,
have some more?
Sorry, what?
You have more questions?
I'm just looking at my notes, if I can, just have a minute.
Go ahead.
As we go here. I saw one other thing here, but I've lost my train of thought as we go. I guess I'll leave it there. I think staff-wise, I saw earlier this 25 and beyond, you added a couple laborers, you're feeling you're good with staff. Equipment-wise, I know what my last question was, thank you for letting me pause. So as I asked the police and fire, what did you learn from this, storm that says, gee, this is going to impact the budget in the future. We weren't able to do this, so we were able to do this, but it really wasn't effective because we used a piece of equipment that really wasn't meant for that, or it took us longer to do this. And I'm not looking at the piece around, because it's a statewide problem, hiring plow drivers. You see the signs fall all the time. But relative to the storm occurred, there's, you can prioritize needs, those high needs that had to happen so that fire, police, the electric could get in and so forth. Your response to that, what would be different? Is there something that we're going to be needing in the future as we look at budgets? Thanks.
Sure. I think there's a bunch of things I can talk about there. First is, as was mentioned, the communication amongst departments is critical to help us identify areas where we needed help, and we got help. And we've really been emphasizing that other departments help us out. If they have a truck, we'll get them a plow, and they can help us plow some of the parking lots in towns. So that was very effective. I think we can probably do a better job getting some of the local contractors on board, just in case we need them for large storms. They were very effective helping us out with loaders. They were extremely expensive, but I think it's worth getting them on board early on. And, to the extent that we can continue utilizing state resources, if they're there, I would like to continue doing that. And maybe we can have some coordination with the base as well to be able to use their equipment. So those are some of the things that I thought about during the storm. But I also realized that this was a major, major blizzard, and you can't possibly prepare for everything. But we certainly, we did our best and got a lot of help from all the departments within the town. So I'm grateful for that.
If I could just add, so Chief Burke's really good about scheduling after-action meetings, and not enough time's gone by for us to be able to do that yet. But I know one of the things that a couple of us have bandied about a little bit is we are having difficulty getting private contractors to plow for us, mostly smaller ones. And just being honest, several of them bailed on us early on in the storm, so we were stuck on our own for the most part. I think one of the things that Paul and I have like briefly talked about, but not in a lot of detail, is a huge barrier for those people to volunteer is the insurance requirements that they would have to meet to plow for the town. And so one of the things we've sort of talked about is, do we buy more smaller, everyday user trucks with a plow that could be attached? And do we have trucks where we can just hire drivers and we provide the equipment? I think we would get more people to come forward and volunteer and help us. Obviously, that's a higher capital cost, but depending on what sort of storms we're looking at down the road, that might be something we have to consider. Personally, I think we could use more smaller vehicles than massive big ones. A lot of our subdivisions, they can't make the corners or the cul-de-sacs at the end. It's just not possible. So, I think there's a lot of things we'll think about. Just so the committee's aware, and Paul could, I'm sure, give the exact numbers, but we have like 140, did you say, miles of public road, a little more than that, whatever. But we plow like 2/3 of the private roads as well. That's a town choice to offer that service to those people who live there. Obviously, that means more roads to plow, more expenses, but we also figure people pay taxes. That would be a nice service to give them. So, those are the type of things I would think going down the road we're going to have to look at. Go ahead, Jeff.
Just had a follow-on question, comment based on something you said, Bud. I was going to ask it later, but I'll ask it now since you mentioned it, and that is the after action. I was going to ask, what the practice is relative to events like this and holding after actions and learning from it and so forth. I did want to share one thing along that line. You haven't had it yet. I was just going to ask you a question. The communication side, I think there was a lot of attempt to communicate. Now, in my case, I'll just give you an example. We lost power, we lost internet. We have very poor cell service when the internet and the power is down, to a point where maybe we get half a bar on our phones. So when I did get internet back, I got this slew of emails, which were great. 8 a.m. in the morning, okay, next update at 3 o'clock. They were 3 days later. It was great information. My question for you, and I've got a little bit of experience in this from my business life, was do we have a text messaging capability? I lived through a hurricane once in the private side, and we had a facility and so forth, and we had text messaging capability. So that same information you were putting out on the internet, you could push out on text. Anyone that registered their phone. And I don't know if I've registered for everything the town offers. I've gone out to the website and I've gotten this link and that link, and I get these messages. I get all the notices on meetings and so forth. But in an emergency, do we have that capability in the town, and is that something you might look at?
I guess I'll let Chief Burke explain that one, because there are certain things we do and can do for that, but I think in that case, we would not go into the level of detail that we did in the communications that we put out on our website and social media. I think we'd focus it more on true emergency notices.
Yeah, so we have Code Red, which is on the town website. There's about 5,000 people signed up for that. That'll get you text messages. But the state has a program which we signed up for through emergency management where they can do emergency alerts even if you don't have them turned on your phone. So you really want to save those for the most critical evacuation, coastal evacuation, et cetera. So there are two redundant layers. There's the Code Red system, which we encourage everybody to sign up for. You do have to put your cell phone number in, your carrier, but when we send a message out, it'll go to email, phone, and text. So you get hit 3 times with that. And then we have the backstop of the MEMA emergency notification system, which will hit everybody's phone that's in that geographical area. You're visiting from Michigan, you're going to get the notification. So those are our two avenues. We did not use those for this storm. We had a discussion about it. Did it rise to the level of critical information? It did not, in our opinion. And to answer your question on the after action, we do after action about 21 days out. So another week or so, I just did the one for the fire chiefs on the Cape. We got some information there, meeting with Eversource. We'll have that all collated together probably by April 1st, I think is a reasonable amount of time to capture everything from the storm and post-storm.
Thanks. Just one follow-up, and that is relative to pushing information. I understand you can't push all that information out there, and I understand why, and nor would you want to. But an example of information that would have been useful, and I don't think was pushed out, but I did read it in the emails, and that is, for instance, the Center for Active Living was not at first opened as a warming center and a place you could go to charge your phone. Later, it was opened. But I didn't know that because I had no way of getting that. That kind of information, I think, is important and should have been pushed out. You know, warming centers and the ability, place you can gather. No, the roads were closed, you couldn't get out anywhere anyways, but still knowing that, because I saw the initial announcements which said the center wasn't going to be open as a warming station. I think the closest one was Hyannis at that time. So I do appreciate and I understand why. I think there is some information that should have been pushed out, could have been, around the warming centers and so forth. Just an opinion. Thank you.
Heather.
I just wanted to follow up on a couple of those, and I think two of the communication points are items that we will talk about on after actions, and both of the things that you raised, we did talk about as the emergency management team. We have more information than the general public does, so we know what the likelihood of power return is. We know, we have a good idea on that. We have a good idea about what the DPW's capacity to get to roads and clear them. So we are careful not to give people information to suggest they should get in their vehicles and start driving where, 60% of the town couldn't get out of their driveway or couldn't get out of their road. So we were assessing that, but it definitely is something we'll be talking about in the after actions discussion. But in some cases, there are reasons why we didn't communicate it sooner.
Anything else for Paul? Okay, thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate it. Next item on our agenda is the capital presentation. In advance of tonight's presentation, the Capital Improvement Planning Committee met to review and then subsequently recommend the items in the capital plan. As a reminder, our own FinCom member, Kevin Klein, represents us on the CIPC, so thank you for that, Kevin. Assistant Town Manager Heather Harper will take us through the requests. And I'll just note that Heather is going to be taking us through both the town and the school requests. Some of the school folks are here with us tonight if there's a specific question.
So I'll sort of take your lead on this. You've had a long evening already and have heard a lot about the requests. I'll kind of hit them generally, and then we can talk in detail about any of them that you'd like to. I'll start off with the first page that is in your packet. And you'll see that's the total request list with a gross request of a little over $2.3 million, with $842,000 of that being ambulance transfer funds, golf enterprise funds for golf requests, and $242,000 for marina. So there's a significant amount of revenue that comes for specific purposes applied to those departments, which is important for you to think about as you're looking at the total capital plan. A couple of things I did want to note and just reinforce that the CIPC is appointed by the moderator there and you with your member, Kevin, and that group has met with a full complement of all members appearing and reviewing each of the items. You have a thick packet of all the requests. They do ask detailed questions. They're lengthy meetings, but they are thorough in terms of the review, and they met 2 times, and following a series of questions, they voted to recommend all of the items, and those recommendations were unanimous among the committee members. So that happened over February and March. And the other thing I want to just note that I think the process for the review of capital, the submissions that come in from the departments, and the evaluation and recommendation process has improved substantially in the last few years. And a lot of that has to do with Bill's leadership in coordinating that with the departments and then helping set some priorities in terms of where we are, as well as being more attentive to the 5-year capital plan. And I think you all know, excuse me, the 10-year capital plan. You all know that each year we project out what we might fund in any given year, but we do evaluate that on an annual basis. So you may not see exactly what the requests were last August, coming up this May as recommendations. It's based on the status of the requests, the priority, and the need. So I'll walk through these relatively quickly. I'll start with the facilities department, and you have a memo that gives a little bit of detail on each of the items, and that goes in the same order as your one-pager. The annual historic building repairs, something we started last year. Those funds, are, like all capital funds, can be set aside if larger projects are needed. It's been extremely helpful to the facilities department. I don't need to get into a lot of detail about what some of those special treatments are, but there are specialty consultant staff and specialty contractors that are needed to perform work in those historic buildings, as well as specialty materials. Annual capital repairs for buildings, $150,000 is the same number that you approved for several years. Again, there was a comment earlier, I think by Mr. Picard, about maintaining the buildings, and Brian Schlegel does an exceptional job. Also has some exceptional buildings. We've got several new buildings, which is a real gift from the community for us to use and maintain. And he has a great both custodial staff and a focus on doing things like changing the strainers and the filters and checking the maintenance schedules. He really is very attentive to those, and I wish those department heads hadn't left, because I think all of them could attest to the support that they get in terms of their operations of all their facilities from the facilities department, which is a pretty small and mighty department itself. Again, there's a few other items that are smaller items. The Oakcrest Cove has a heat pump that needs to be replaced. There's another one here at 100 Route 6A, and again, just a reminder that we didn't replace the entirety of the HVAC system. Many of those heat pumps remain original to our acquisition, perhaps not original to the building, are operational, but this is one that does need to be replaced. There's an ice guard that's needed at the Center for Active Living, and again, that falls into the one-time request category. And then the two vehicles for that department are essential to the operations. One is the director's vehicle. We work with our mechanic within the Department of Public Works, and when Paul says, this is no longer can be repaired, we look to replacing, and so this vehicle will be replaced with a trade-in on the vehicle that he's currently operating. And then the service van for the facilities department, I think we're their fourth hand-me-down for that vehicle. It was Council on Aging, Recreation, I think it went somewhere else in between, and then to facilities. And again, it's the daily driver for the custodial department and is needed to be replaced. We've talked about the TASER lease program. I won't get into that. The Polaris, you've heard a bit about. Ambulance, you had the chief speak with you about. The Department of Public Works didn't talk a lot about the chipper, but it's a 10-year-old chipper that needs to be replaced. The existing chipper will be retained for use. It's not great for daily operations and needs a lot of repair, but could be used in smaller incidences. The other two, the Packer truck and the aerial lift, you heard Paul talk about. I'm happy to answer any questions about those. And then we get into the enterprise fund accounts. Those are the golf department. We're really pleased that the golf department, I think it's been probably 42, 41 days that they haven't been operating, which is a long time for them with all the snow. They've done exceptionally well with their operations in the last couple of years. They've been able to meet their funding of their debt service for the irrigation system, which is something I know that the department is incredibly proud of, being able to do that, as are we. And there is a need for equipment to maintain the operation. Small equipment, I don't know if you want me to go into details on these. They're relatively small items that are needed by the department, but will help them immensely. And as well as course improvements. Any of you that have been out there have seen some significant improvements, and we hope to see more. This is sort of a general item that helps them with T-box and bunker repairs. We expect that this year we will complete all of the programmed golf path replacement. In fact, that was supposed to start March. Hopefully it still will start in March, weather on our side. So they're making really great progress there with the resources that they generate themselves. The same with the marina. There's a never-ending desire for slips there. Again, they do a great job internally, do many of the repairs themselves for dock improvements. It's a real value to the marina that we have skilled staff that are able to do many of the repairs there. So those improvements would be funding perhaps some contract work, but a lot of it will be equipment, materials to support our own staff doing repairs to the marina. And again, we try to be as flexible as we can be. There is a Seaport Advisory Grant that we will submit, and if it's awarded for the Harbor Walk, which this body approved design funds for last year, we may need to dip into these funds to match that grant if it is awarded. And that would be a substantive grant in the $800,000 plus range to complete the Harbor Walk. There's a record for those grants that if you get the design funds and you make progress with your design and you make a commitment to the matching funds, that you are likely to be successful, but one never knows, and so we just would like to be prepared for that. The Carolina Skiff, again, that's a highly stable work vessel. I have observed the way that they've worked on floats to do some of their repair work. It is not the safest, most responsible way to do things. The Carolina Skiff will make it much safer for them to do the repair work that they do. It isn't a mariner's vessel, it's a work vessel, so it won't be out in the harbor. Again, and then the school department, Mike Ryan came in, did a superb job reviewing the projects that they have coming up for this year. Annual maintenance for the school department, $185,000. I think we're really proud that we've been able to, chip away at increasing that, same as we have for the town side. And it's great to have Mike on board with that. The automation system, if there's questions, I'll let Mike talk about those, but they are replacing the software at the Sandwich Middle High School. Again, it's just the controls piece. It isn't a wholesale change of the system, but helps them manage the system that they do have that should help them both provide more efficiency and comfort for the department and just better knowledge about what's happening there on a day-to-day basis. Interior painting, I think that's an important one. We do, and we've had these conversations for many years, that some of these fundamental carpet replacement painting really ought to be in the annual maintenance category for the school department. This is a little bit unique. If you look in the Oak Ridge and the Forestdale schools, at the interior vestibule, there's a cupola, and it's really beautiful light that comes in, but those have had some drainage issues over the last several years. The drainage issues have been repaired, but they do need to be scraped and painted since the repairs have now been done. Mike can bring a crew in to do that, but that isn't force account work. That's not staff. That's scaffolding. That's contract work, and it is prevailing wages. So that is why you see that here in the capital plan. The Sandwich Middle High School locker room, again, there was some work done. I know if there's questions, you all can jump in. There's some work done by volunteers for with the football program, and the football locker room saw some nice repair work that was done through volunteers and donations. That left the female side of the locker room looking a little less well, and they really felt they needed to make that investment in the girls' side. Again, it is a very large locker facility. Anyone that's in there knows the scope of it. This is just the female locker room. Doesn't mean that the track area or the baseball area has been updated. There's some areas that will continue to need to be done in the future. Field lining robot, I think that's one we all had the most fun with. It is actually an excellent efficiency project for the school department. It's going to save them over $8,000 a year in direct contract expenses, but also will liberate some of their staff from physically pushing the lining machine, and they have to be on site when the robot is doing its work, but they will be able to do clearing or weed whacking or mowing or other things while the robot is doing its field lining work. And I can tell you from personal experience that having a trained field lining professional on staff is a real gift, and when you lose that professional, if that's what you're doing, it takes a long time to train someone how to paint fields. So having a robot program to do that work is a great tool for the department. It can also do some parking lot work, so we may ask for some tap into it from time to time for very small parking lot work. Lastly, school flooring. This is a unique one. This was a project that was approved, they planned to do last year from their funds. Were unable to do it. They're looking to sort of recoup those back and get that done this year. I think that's in a nutshell where we are with capital. Again, 2 very thorough discussions with the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. Really thorough work from the departments in terms of the requests and the review. Again, this isn't, we don't recommend everything that comes in. This is what we've recommended and what was approved by the Capital Improvement Planning Committee.
Thanks, Heather. Thank you. Kevin, do you have anything to add from your participation on CIPC?
Not really. Heather did a great job of summarizing it, and CIPC, we had questions. They were all answered. A lot of our questions had to do with the robot, but we were convinced that it is a valid purchase, a good purchase, and it's going to save time and money. We did question the interior painting, and again, that's not going to be a reoccurring capital expense. This is a unique interior painting, that it needs the scaffolding. That was really it. The school committee, Dr. Joe and Mike came in and talked with us and really explained their requests, and CIPC took it under advisement and voted on every one of these to recommend it unanimously.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks for representing us. Questions for Heather or for the folks here from the school? Crystal?
And I did have one question. So Heather, you said the Harbor Walk, if the grant's awarded, it's 800,000 now, or is that 400 and then we match up to 800?
You know, again, we don't have a full cost estimate done yet from the design engineer.
Yep.
That is just, you know, a wild guess at this point, but it's in the $1 million range for the construction. I haven't seen the estimates yet, but there's some matching that's required. So we'll know more about that. My message is that we may need to tap into that appropriation to help support that match should we see an award.
Okay, so the total is, like, let's just approximate, total's $1 million, so that's 500.
No, I think it's 20% match.
Okay.
So it just depends.
Okay, thanks.
Nancy?
Hopefully, just a quick question. We've talked about the girls' locker room before, and I don't remember if we actually allocated money. Did we ever allocate money? Was it spent? Was it given back? And is this enough to do the whole locker room?
Do you mind? Thanks, Dr. Marshak, for being here.
Probably not, Nancy. It'll probably give us a nice, fresh repainting, and also the aim is to replace some of the fixtures, benches, things like that. Some of the plumbing fixtures are in really, really tough shape. Some of the benches alongside the lockers are also in tough shape. I think also the vision would be to take some of the lockers that are in really, really tough shape and replace them, but that would not do a wholesale replacement.
They've been bad for a long time.
Quite a long time, yeah.
Not even usable, they were stuck.
But I do think fresh paint, new plumbing fixtures. It's kind of interesting. Tomorrow at 5 here, we'll have our Student Advisory Council, 5 terrific kids who kind of get the ear of the school committee. And that's kind of been a consistent theme over the last year of saying, hey, something really has to be done about the girls' locker room.
Thank you.
Any other questions on capital? Jeff?
I had also a question around the girls' locker room. Maybe from a different perspective, and I don't have the background. So I always get concerned when we spend money without a plan. So my question is, what's the plan? Do we have a plan? And what I mean by that is, I just heard you say, you know, there was a question, is this $75,000 going to solve everything? The answer is no. this needs to be done, that needs to be done. And I get concerned that we put money into something, and then when a plan is put together as to what we're gonna do long-term, be it for this locker room or some other facility, that money we just put in was a waste, that we should have waited, because we're gonna rip it all out. So is there a plan, and is this supportive of that plan, knowing that it's gonna be done in phases, knowing that, so that's my question.
Do you want me to answer it? I would strongly invite you to come to tomorrow night's school committee meeting at 6 p.m. here, where we will have a review of the facilities condition assessment that you guys ever so generously supported. We will have, Michael will be co-presenting with a gentleman by the name of Mr. Bancroft, who is the principal architect of Habib and Associates, and kind of go through really scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 kind of order of priority of needs. And I think that's just the beginning of the conversation of the plan that you're talking about, Jeff, that what are the high leverage items that we really need to plan for to continue the investment of the schools.
Yet we're gonna approve 75,000 before the plan.
I think there's easily enough difficult situations in that locker room. For example, mirrors that effectively don't work, plumbing fixtures that do not work, benches that are dilapidated, that, yes, it does make sense, even if it's very short term, to support our female students.
Heather,
There's a member first.
go ahead.
Yes, I'd say as a father of 2 female athletes in high school, I think it's money well spent. The girls' athletes have been complaining for, I think, 4 years now, since the football program raised some capital to redo some of the.
Yeah, that was done in the summer of '23.
Yeah, so maybe 3 years. Why aren't our locker rooms getting any attention? I think the locker rooms needed work there when I was in high school, which was in the late 90s. So I don't think we're glamorizing the locker rooms by any sense. I think we're just freshening them up to make them a little more presentable and usable for our students. And I don't think we need a huge study to recognize that need.
So let me clarify. I never used the word glamorize. I'm not saying you are glamorizing. What I am saying is, my position always is, we have plans before we spend money. Be it $1 or be it $5 million. That's always my position. That's what you'll hear me always state. So I get concerned because dollars are tight. I want them to be effectively used. I'm not saying it shouldn't be fixed up. I'm not saying it shouldn't have been fixed up before the boys' locker room. All I'm advocating for is going in, because I could see us redoing the locker room and having to change all that plumbing we just did. Plumbing is expensive. Maybe not the mirrors, maybe not the paint. I don't know. But without a plan, you don't know. So you always run that risk. I'm not saying it will happen here, but you always run that risk. The second comment I had on this document and reading it, and I found these words troubling from a budget point of view. And that was under the annual maintenance for the school department. It said it's always helpful to have capital funds that carry over from year to year that allow the departments to accumulate funds for larger ticket items not covered in operation budgets. And to me, that's troubling, because if you have larger projects that are coming, you should be coming back with your budget to this team, to this committee, and getting them approved. We shouldn't be rolling funds over and letting them accumulate for larger projects. It does, again, I like to see plans, I like to see structure. I like to see those things in place so that we spend the money well. So I found that wording in this document very troubling, that we're just rolling funds over to accumulate for bigger projects. We shouldn't behave that way, in my opinion.
Bob?
I'm looking forward to tomorrow night's presentation. I've read the report twice. I'll keep reading it. I think it's good. I think my observation would be just slightly different, and perhaps this is for us to consider with the team and with the school department and with the capital planning committee. I think there's too many routine maintenance items that end up in the front of the capital committee. And I've been saying for a long time, I think we grossly underfund maintenance. And I'm not going to steal any thunder from reports to be discussed elsewhere later, but the words deferred maintenance are echoing in my ears. And deferred maintenance just means it all ends up in front of the capital committee later on in what should have been done more frequently, more regularly to eliminate the need for capital spends. So my comment here would just be, I think whether it's the Finance Committee or the Capital Committee or some other committee to be created later, we need to look at how we're funding maintenance. And I don't think they should be capital items. So I would ask that this committee, with the team at Town Hall, address the fact that we've been talking about putting aside more money for routine, ongoing, regular maintenance, and we don't seem to do it other than coming up with big capital asks. And maybe that's fine, maybe that's how we want to do it in this community, but in many communities, that's not how it's done, and I think it's worthy of a future discussion.
Thanks, Bob. Anyone else for questions or comments on capital? Okay. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Dr. Marushek. I think you're going to be here next week to also review the plan that... Sorry. We'll talk. Okay, very good. Thanks again. With that, any old business? Seeing none there, and I don't have any. Any new business? Bob?
Just one quick item, and thanks to you, Ed. I was kicking around with some input from others, this notion of comparable towns. Oftentimes in these meetings and in other meetings, we tend to guess a little bit about what a comparable town is to ours, and oftentimes we just refer to communities that surround this town, and that's just not a decent representation of comparable towns. So again, in terms of the spirit of giving more work to more people who volunteer, I think there should be some sort of subgroup set up, partnering with folks in Town Hall to identify a series of comparable towns using some of the state data that's available, and then going forward, all the committees and the various groups in town, when we want to make informed comparisons, can have a uniform list of comparable towns and understand why they're comparable.
Thanks, Bob. Anything else for new business? Okay, public comment. Any comments from the public this evening? Seeing none there, we'll move on to closing remarks. Thanks again to the Big Three team that came before us, Chiefs Burke and Keene and Paul Tilton, Heather, Dr. Marushek, Michael, thank you for being with us this evening and for the ongoing efforts as we continue our work on budget planning in 2027. Our next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for next week, Tuesday, March 17th at 6. We'll be joined by Superintendent of Upper Cape Tech, Roger Forget, to review their budget. We'll review the fiscal 27 budget for the Community Preservation Act. And as agreed at the start of the budget season, we'll have an opportunity to follow up on things we've heard throughout the budget season, and any questions that we still might have, or you might have, that you want to pose. And I just ask in preparation for our meeting that any of those questions you might have, if you can send them ahead, that's always quite helpful, so the town team can prepare and be ready to respond to those. Obviously, if something comes up at the meeting, they'll respond, but prep is always useful. So if you have those, please send those to me and to Bill ahead of time. Nancy?
Now, can you remind Mr. Forget that he agreed that he would put percentage increase or decrease? We've asked for a couple of years, and then I think he forgets. So when he gives his numbers, he'll say whatever the number is, but we never know what it was.
Percentage increase. Okay, I'll remind him.
Or
Yeah.
decrease.
Yeah,
And then if we could get his presentation as early as possible. Thank you.
Bill, you want to reach out to Roger Forsyth?
Yeah, I was planning on speaking with him in the next day or two, so I'll certainly have that conversation with him.
Okay, thank you. Any other closing remarks? Jeff?
Two items. One is my apology to you, Bud, for my earlier discussion. Now, I was trying to do something in my head, which is always a mistake. I have to sit down and write it. I had the numbers wrong, what I was trying to do. You were absolutely right in challenging me, so please, my apology to you. You know it better than I do. The second thing is, I have questions I've sent forward, and I know they've gone forward to different departments that I've never gotten answers back to. So I was going to take the time to put them all in one document. They're in multiple emails to you, Ed, and send that on to you to see if I could find out what the status of those. There was some to the school department, and there was some to the town that I've not yet got answers to.
Okay, and if I have
I know they went
those along the
forward.
way, I apologize, but
I know they went forward, but I've never gotten replies back. But
they haven't been included in the presentations? Okay, yeah, so if you recap...
Some have been, don't get me wrong, but there's still some questions I've had that have not been answered.
Okay, yeah, if you recap those
Okay.
next week will be a perfect time. So, but if you get them ahead, that'll
try
be
to.
helpful too. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on closing remarks? If not, motion to adjourn. Motion. By Crystal, second by Kevin. All in favor? Unanimous. Have a great evening. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Bill.